Hello, welcome back to A Girl in Sheep's Clothing podcast. My name's Claire and I'm coming to you from Melbourne, Australia. This is a podcast that's mostly about knitting, and there may be some other crafty things in here too every now and then, like a bit of crochet, and I'm studying textile design, so when I go back to uni there may be some content about that. This is the third episode on my channel and the second podcast episode. I recorded my first episode about a month ago, and I would have liked to have recorded sooner, but my whole family got COVID and then we had summer holidays. So it's summer here in Australia and we have summer holidays over the Christmas, and that was absolutely lovely. We went on some trips to the beach. We spent some time with friends and family. I didn't really get that much knitting done, but I still do have a fair bit to show you. I've got 2 finished objects and 3 works in progress. So the first finished object that I want to show you is what I'm wearing. This is the Friday tee by Petiteknit. I showed it as a work in progress in the last episode, and now it's finished. I've worn it several times since I finished it, and I've thrown it in the wash and it's just come up great. I really love that it's cotton and I can just throw it in the wash. It feels really liberating. Usually with a hand knit I won't do that, so I feel like I have to be a little bit careful about spilling things on myself and stuff like that. Whereas with this one, I've just been treating it like a regular t-shirt, and that's pretty cool. It took quite a long time to knit. It's knit with a 2.75mm needle and 4-ply cotton. So as you can imagine, that took quite some time, but because it's a t-shirt I didn't have to do very much sleeve, and it's a sort of cropped fit. It lands at about the start of my hips or just above my hips, and I've been wearing it with jeans and shorts. I really love it. I think it has quite a retro vibe to it, and I love the colours that I picked. I think they really suit me and they're very warm and summery, and I'm just really into this t-shirt. The yarn I used is Hobbi rainbow cotton, the 8-4, or let me check. It's Hobbi rainbow 8/4, quality 100% cotton. The colours I used are colour 3 and colour 88. I've also got all of the information about the yarn on my Ravelry, so if you're interested you can have a look there. I'll put that on the screen. It's a really nice yarn. It's very affordable. I found knitting with cotton quite difficult at the start, and I mentioned this in my first episode. It can be a little bit hard on your hands, and I'm not used to knitting with cotton. I'm usually all about wool, so it took me a bit of getting used to, and I found that bamboo needles worked for me a lot better than metal needles for the cotton, just because it slips off the metal needles maybe too quickly, or I just was finding it really hard to get even tension with the metal needles, and with the bamboo needles, something about it, its stickiness, it was just the right kind of friction for the cotton. Something interesting about knitting with cotton I found was that when I did the bind off for the sleeve, I did it loose like I would with wool, but because cotton has no stretch, it doesn't end up going as tight as wool would, if that makes sense. So when you're binding off with wool, if you're working too tightly, and because the wool is stretchy, it will become really tight, whereas with cotton, because it has no stretch, it doesn't do that in the same way. So when I bound off loosely, the sleeve was really flared and it just didn't look very good. So I ripped it out and I redid it, and I did it as tight as I could, and it came out perfectly. It felt really strange to be binding off so tightly. I thought this just is wrong, but no, it worked out really well. And then so I did the same thing on the bottom as well, and it's got quite a nice bind off finish. The pattern is really well written, as all of Petiteknit patterns are, and I would definitely knit this again. I've already been thinking about what colour I'll do my next one in. And I do need some summer knitting projects because it's quite warm now. We had a bit of a delay with our warm weather here, and we just kept having all these wintry days when it was supposed to be summer. So I did quite a bit of fluffy warm knitting, which I'll show you soon. But now it's really warm, so I think I do need another cotton project. Alright, let me show you my next finished object. It is the Monday sweater by Petiteknit. So this one is just absolutely beautiful. I showed it to you as a work in progress in my first episode, and now it's finished. Look at this in all its fluffy glory. It's a bit warm for it today, but I might just put it on to show you anyway. So warm, fluffy, squishy, beautiful oversized fit. I knit it to pattern, except made a couple of small modifications. The modifications I made were turning the 1x1 rib for the neckline into a 2x2 rib because I like the way they look. And then because I did that, I changed the raglan from 3 stitches to 2, just so that it would line up with the 2x2 rib. And then to match, I did 2x2 rib on the sleeves and the waistband. I love this. It's knit in Knitting for Olive merino and Knitting for Olive soft mohair. Super soft mohair. What's it called? Let me see. I'm sure you all know it. It's a very, very popular yarn. Soft silk mohair, and the color is soft blue. I just love this color. It's like a bit moody, and it's just so lovely. Like, it's a bluish gray, really calming, and I'm usually into mostly warm colors, but I love the blues, and especially grey blues, and it goes with my eyes. So I've got sort of greyish blue coloured eyes, so I think that might be why this colour suits me as well, even though I'm generally more a warm toned colour person. I might take it off now because it's quite warm in here. So I used 6 balls of the mohair, or almost 6, so about 5.5. And of the merino, I used 5 balls, but I'd bought 6 of each. I didn't think about this when I bought the yarn, but there's more yarn in the ball for the merino than there is for the mohair. So in the mohair, there's 225 meters in the ball, and in the merino there's 250 meters in the ball, so an extra 25 meters, and over all the balls that ends up adding up to quite a bit. So just bear that in mind if you're purchasing the 2 together. And I don't really mind having the extra one because I might be able to knit something for my toddler, or I could knit an accessory or something with it. And because I've done the same thing with all of the knitting frills that I've bought, I'll have a spare ball for each colour. Maybe I could combine them all and make something together. But yes, anyway, now it's time to put this one away for the summer because it's much too warm to wear it. But who knows, with Melbourne weather it can turn on a dime, so maybe tomorrow I'll be wearing this one again. Alright, so let me move on to my works in progress. My first work in progress, which I started before we got COVID, is a quite detailed project. I really had to psych myself up to do this project because it requires a fair bit of thinking. There's lace and there's cables, and it's knit flat and seamed. So you can't try it on as you go, and I had to think a lot about the project before I started to make sure that I would get the right fit, because you can't just try it on as you go and then modify. So there was a fair bit of thinking involved, and then when I got COVID, it just became a little bit too difficult. So I panic cast on another project. Let me show you. So this is my first project. The pattern is Berenice by Julie Hoover for Brooklyn Tweed, and it's this absolutely gorgeous, oversized, fingering weight pullover with cables and lace. And it's designed to be knit in Brooklyn Tweed loft, so quite a woolly rustic yarn. It's soft, but it's woolen spun, so it's got that fuzzy rustic feel to it. And I've knit mine in Hillesvag Ask. I love the way that this combines lace work with a rustic yarn. I think that's just got such a nice romantic look to it. And I love that it's oversized but still light because it's in fingering weight. And I feel like this is quite a mammoth project because of all of the intricate work you have to do, plus knitting in such a small needle. It's knit with 3.5mm needles and fingering weight yarn. So I think it's going to take me a long time to finish, but I have already made quite some progress. The repeat is not really memorable. I mean, it's not easy to remember the lace repeat because there are so many rows in the repeat, so you have to be looking at the chart all the time. But the cables are really easy to remember because they're just a left cross and a right cross. And so I can do the stockinette part and the cable part while watching TV, and then I have to pause while doing this midsection so that I can look at the chart and make sure that I do the lace properly, which isn't that frequently because of how large it is. It takes quite a while to do a whole row of this, and then you've got the back side which is just purling, so I can still watch TV and knit this. I really love the wool that I'm using for this. It's Hillesvag Ask and it's Norwegian wool. It's so rustic and beautiful, but I don't find it too scratchy. It's an absolutely gorgeous colour. I love it. It's an oatmeal kind of warm beigey brown, really light, and it has these darker parts with a little bit of a reddish tint to it. It's just got all these different colours within the yarn, and while I'm knitting with it I just feel so warm and cozy. And we had quite a few colder days at the start of summer, and I spent a good amount of time rugged up knitting this, but thinking about, oh, it's going to be summer soon, I kind of gonna miss winter, which is just crazy to think because I love summer. It's just so much fun, and our moods are always better in summer and we get out and about more. But this really made me think about winter and how I love winter as well, mostly for knitting and being cozy. So hopefully I get this one finished before next winter, and then I can start the winter season in a beautiful oversized pullover with that gorgeous cable and lace detail. I am a little bit nervous about how this is going to turn out because it's knit in pieces. I'm not going to know until I've done months worth of knitting. It could just not work out and then I'll have to unravel it. But I really hope it does, because it's just giving me all the best feels and I really can't wait to wear it. So wish me luck for this project. I know I've been knitting for quite a long time now, but I still sometimes am a bit nervous when I start a project like this because of all those reasons I mentioned. It's just so much knitting before you know whether it's going to work out or not. And usually I'm kind of okay with that for most projects if it's like stockinette, something that I love to do while I'm sitting and watching TV. If it doesn't work out and I have to unravel it, I don't feel like it's that big of a deal because I've just been doing it while I've been watching TV or I'm on the train. Whereas this one, I have to concentrate and it's a lot of work. You can't do something else while you're knitting lace. Well, I can't anyway. I haven't knit much lace and this is why. And same with cables. I feel like with knitting cables, you have a bit of a disruption to the flow of knitting with having to pick up the cable needle, put it in the stitches, and fiddle around with it and then take it out and then you put it down and then you've lost it in your lap in the couch, like where'd my cable needle go? So I am getting a little bit better at it and I can do it just fine, but it's just not the same as relaxing and knitting something that you don't have to think too much about. And I don't mind a little bit of a challenge with knitting sometimes too, so it is really good to have a project like this on the needles as well as a nice simple project. And that's what I'm going to show you next, a really nice simple project that I pretty much panic cast on when I found out that my husband had COVID, because I was thinking, when will I get COVID, and I don't know if I'll be able to knit this, priorities. Yeah, so I quickly cast on a project that I've knit before. It's really easy and I can do it without thinking. The only part that requires a little bit of thinking is some short rows at the start. And so I did that part before I got COVID in anticipation for if I got it, I could just pick up this project and knit no matter how badly I felt. So I cast on the No Frills Sweater by Petiteknit. Now, I don't really need another oversized raglan, but I love them so much. And this one's a different colour. I have one in every colour, every style. The No Frills Sweater was actually the first Petiteknit pattern I ever knit several years ago. And I don't have that sweater anymore. I gave it away to a friend because it was this like dark pink base colour, or the main colour yarn, the merino, was dark pink, and then I used a strand of light pink mohair, which I thought would create this really beautiful effect, and it did, until I was wearing it around my sister, who told me it looked like mincemeat, and then I couldn't unsee that. It's so silly. So it just looked like It just had that like reddish pink with the white bits, and every time I put it on I thought of mincemeat, like minced ground beef, you know? So she kind of ruined it for me, and even though it was a beautiful sweater, I gave it to a dear friend and didn't tell her about the mincemeat thing, and I'm sure she'll never think of it. It's stupid. And I don't even know if it really does look like that. But you know how when you get something in your head and you just can't unsee it then? Anyway, so yeah, this is, I don't have one in my wardrobe anymore, so I thought I could use another one. And I knit it in Knitting for Olive. The colours I used are Dusty Petroleum Blue. Let me double check that. I've got two balls here. So yeah, they're the same colour but different shade depth. So this one is Dusty Petroleum Blue for the merino, and then the silk mohair is Deep Petroleum Blue. And so yeah, same colour, just different depth of colour mixed together to create this kind of mold effect, which I think looks really beautiful. I love how it's turned out, and I can't wait to finish it. It's probably not going to be worn until next winter, but it'll be nice to start the winter with some really cozy sweaters. So I knit through all of the body of this and just a tiny bit of the sleeve while I had COVID. It was a pretty rough couple of weeks. My whole family was sick, and so having to look after my toddler and being sick, and there wasn't really that much time for knitting, but yeah, I got this much done in 2 weeks. It's still quite a bit. And then I started thinking about how, as soon as I finish these sleeves, I won't have any easy, mindless stockinette project to do anymore, because as I showed you, my last project is one that requires a lot of thinking. So I ended up casting on another project. This one is another Petiteknit pattern. It's the Champagne Cardigan. I'm knitting this one in just one strand of a worsted weight yarn in this beautiful reddy orange colour, which I absolutely love. And I wanted to do some stash busting for this one. The yarn I use is Cascade 220, which I've had for a very long time. And the pattern's designed to be knit with a strand of 8-ply wool or DK weight wool and a strand of mohair, which create this worsted weight fabric. And it has the original. I'm sure you would have seen it. It's such a beautiful pattern. It has this drape like these fabrics do, whereas mine is more of a structured, rigid fabric, because Cascade 220 is our worsted spun yarn, and it's got quite a bit of memory, so it's going to have a little bit of a different look to what the pattern is intended to, but I think it's going to look really cool. There's this brand Bar that has these really beautiful sort of chunky weight wool sweaters, and this reminds me of those. I think it's going to be lovely. And I will knit the Champagne Cardigan again as well in a merino and a mohair, just because I love the way it's supposed to look. But I am really excited for this version too. I'll put it on to show you. So this is the progress I've made so far. It's gonna be beautiful and oversized, cozy. I think it'll be just great in winter. I'm gonna knit it to about just below the hips. It's a raglan, and it has nice big sleeves. It's got this beautiful deep V, and then the button band is a double knit button band which you knit and apply to the edge, which I've never done before, so that'll be interesting. I always love to try new things. I'm really enjoying knitting this because it's just stockinette, but because it's worked flat, there's quite a bit of purling. And I had some issues with my tension while I was knitting this because I wasn't quite at full mental capacity yet. When I started this, I still was coming out of COVID, and I was having trouble figuring out whether it was my knit or my purl row that was tighter. So I think this is quite a common thing where you'll either knit or you'll purl a bit tighter, and then you'll get these little stripes in the knitting. And because stockinette is a 2-row stitch, it can be hard to figure out which row is which. For me anyway. As soon as I felt better and I looked at it, I was like, oh, silly me. I kept thinking that my knits were tighter than my purls, but actually it was the other way around. So every time I kept trying to fix it, I thought, oh, I'll purl tighter. So I'd purl tighter, and then it just kept happening, and it was getting worse almost. And then like, oh, it is getting worse because it wasn't supposed to be the purls that needed to be tighter, it was the knits that needed to be tighter. So as soon as I figured that out, my tension got a lot nicer, but I don't think it's worth ripping out. I kind of don't mind. Knitting is supposed to look handmade, and this is the kind of yarn where the stitch definition is just pristine, but that means you can see tension irregularities more than you could with a woolen spun yarn or something with mohair fuzz to cover that up. So it's not perfect, but it's okay. I'm happy with it. But now here I am in the height of summer with 3 really warm knitting projects on the go, and they can be a little warm to sit underneath and knit. So I might have to cast on something else, another cotton project, I think. So that means I'll have 4 whips, but that's okay. I think I can handle that. I actually do have another whip, which I showed you in my last episode. It's Beauty School by Poison Girls, and I've got some issues with it, so I've stopped knitting it for the time being. I might show you what I mean. I'll go get it. So I showed this work in progress in my first podcast, and it's been sitting aside pretty much since then because, well, I did a little bit more on it, and then I realized that it wasn't fitting right, and so I just stopped knitting it. I need to decide whether I want to continue or not, and it's been quite a lot of knitting, so it feels like it might be worth it just to finish it even though it's not quite perfect. Or do I unravel it? It's knit in reclaimed yarn, who I got from my mother-in-law, who got it from the op shop from 2 beautiful cotton cashmere sweaters that she unraveled, and now I'm knitting it into something new. I really want it to be something I'll wear. I'll show you what's wrong with it. Hang on. Okay, so it has this excess fabric around here, and it's supposed to be a negative ease garment, and I don't really like to wear things that have too much negative ease, so I thought I'll try and make it just 0 ease, and that might still have the same effect. But I think I ended up doing too big a size, and it's got all this excess fabric around the bust, and then the arm is quite tight, and that sort of combo just creates this bunched up fabric around here, which doesn't look great. And I knit so much of the body without realizing that, because as you can see on this side, you can't really see it when it doesn't have the sleeve attached. It looks fine, but when I put the sleeve in, which was quite a lot of work by the way, it's a set-in sleeve, it really made this just look not quite right. So it's not gonna be an easy fix. I think I'd pretty much have to start again and make a smaller size or a deeper armhole. Don't know exactly. If you can figure out what needs to change about the fit for this one, let me know, because yeah, I think it's just too large in the bust and quite shallow in the arm, and just doesn't fit me well. So what am I going to do with this beautiful yarn now? Maybe unravel it again. Yeah, so sometimes when I have a work in progress like that just isn't working out and I haven't decided what to do yet, I just put it aside and don't think about it for a while, because it can be a little bit upsetting if you spend so much time knitting something like that is a very fine yarn and small needles, and then to unravel it can just be a bit heartbreaking if you do it straight away. So put it aside, do some other knitting. Time heals all wounds. So I will unravel it, but just not quite yet. I've got a lot going on anyway, so it can just sit for a while. Okay, I really hope that you had a good summer, or actually winter for most of you. Most of you are in the Northern Hemisphere. After my first episode, YouTube gave me these analytics of who's watching and where they're from and what ages and everything. So that was really cool to see. There's a really large number of you from the US, and then quite a few from Europe, not that many from Australia or anywhere else in the Southern Hemisphere. I guess we just don't have as many people down here. But there are some people watching from Australia and New Zealand, so hello to my neighbours. But hello to everyone from all over the world. It's just so cool to be speaking to you from all the way down here in sunny Australia. I had a lovely Christmas with my family, and we had a really nice holiday. We went to the beach, we saw friends, we had picnics and all of those lovely summer things. I'd really love to hear what you got up to over your Christmas, wherever you're from, or holidays if you're celebrating something else. I hope the audio was better in this episode. I purchased a microphone, so I really hope that made a difference. I have a little bit of a quiet voice, so hopefully that will be rectified by my microphone. I think that will do for today. It's my first day getting back into the swing of things after a really beautiful holiday, so I'm not exactly in work mode just yet. I think I'll leave it there. But thanks so much for joining me. I really hope that you enjoyed the podcast. So thanks. Bye.